This seemed to be the week when the media launched a multi-front war against Donald Trump, from his business dealings, as we discussed earlier, to his comments on the CIA and Russian hackers, to his pick for Secretary of State. And we're back with the panel. Erin, have the media taken the leaked CIA findings on the Russian hackers and kind of transformed it into a partisan debate about whether Vladimir Putin handed Trump the presidency? I mean, Kellyanne Conway was saying, look, it didn't tip the election, and I agree with her, but it certainly is an important fact of the election.
It's a huge story. We're never going to get to the bottom of whether or not the outcome was affected by the hacking. We're never going to get to the bottom of it. However, getting to the bottom of the actual story and what they were doing and what they were up to is a story that is not going to be solved by a couple of anonymous sources. This story is going to go on for years. I'm sure we'll see a number of books written about it. We're never going to know the real answer about whether the outcome was tipped.
Let's take a longer view of this whole debate about Donald Trump and Russia. I mean, he didn't make any secret during the campaign that he wanted to have a more cooperative relationship with Russia. Do you think the D.C. media establishment, in particular Molly, is kind of wedded to a hardline approach against Moscow, and therefore anything that deviates from that, and particularly if it's Trump, he's kind of portrayed as weak and naive toward
Well, you can get some whiplash when you look at how the media covered. They didn't like that Bush looked into Putin's heart and saw goodness or whatever. But then during the Obama administration, during the Obama administration, I remember there was a Time magazine cover right at the beginning that said, "Can we be friends?" and it was a picture of Obama with a Russian bear. During the 4 years ago, Mitt Romney said he thought Russia was a huge geopolitical threat. The media made so much fun of him. The New York Times made so much fun of him. And so now Trump clearly has this strategy of cozying up to Russia, which is not altogether that different from his predecessors. And now it's suddenly the most dangerous threat in the world. And it's just this back and forth that is hard to track, if they're really caring about it, or if it's just yet another way to bludgeon Donald Trump.
I'm getting vertigo just listening to you. Julie, I asked Kellyanne again about this tweet from Donald Trump, who does obviously reach a lot of people through Twitter. If Russia or some other entity was hacking, why did the White House wait so long to act? Why did they only complain after Hillary lost? New York Times, in a news story, just said this was false because the administration didn't do anything. Said it didn't want it to appear partisan, but did speak as late as October, as early as October, about Russian hackers trying to hurt the Democrats.
And apprised Congress of it even before that. So I will say this. I think you're absolutely right about the fact that there were Democrats, including President Obama, who scoffed at Mitt Romney when Mitt Romney rightly said, and I said it 4 years ago, rightly said that Russia was a geopolitical threat. And I do agree with you that liberals went, oh my God, heavens to Betsy, the Cold War called, we can't have this back. The reality is every president comes in, George Bush did it, Barack Obama did it, it seems like Donald Trump is doing it, trying to cozy up to a man to whom you cannot cozy up. This is like trying to date a guy who does not want to date you no matter how much you're trying to show him a little leg, he's not going to go date you. That's what every administration does.
Especially since
and I say this as somebody who knows quite a bit about Russia.
Yeah.
So what Donald Trump needs to understand is when you have 17 news intelligence agencies in agreement as to the fact that the Russians hacked the DNC and hacked John Podesta, in agreement about the fact that this is not a country that wishes us well, he has to understand that unless he gets in line with what we need to do to punish Vladimir Putin for doing this, or he's going to be next the minute he deviates from the party line.
There is broad bipartisan consensus on this. Everyone knows that Russia meddled in the election. The question is really about the media coverage of it, though. Like, they're taking it to such an extreme and treating it so emotionally and so irrationally. It's hard to have like a really good discussion about it.
It's not irrational because it is a huge geopolitical
No, but
threat.
we knew it was happening before the election. Everybody voted knowing that it was happening, and the information that was revealed was all true.
Let me just jump in. I'm still processing, Julie, considering Vladimir Putin undateable.
No, he considers us undateable.
All right.
We're not trying to date him.
Josh Earnest was talking about this and the Russian hacking, and he said, he was talking to a New York Times reporter who asked the question, your newspaper and others make clear, news organizations, says Josh Earnest, in the U.S. essentially became arms of Russian intelligence. This is because we published the fruits of the illegal hacking, which I always felt uncomfortable doing, but how do you not do it? It becomes news when you have all this internal stuff.
I actually do think it's very dangerous to just rely on WikiLeaks for all sorts of information. It is, again, weird that it only became a concern this cycle and not when it was disparaging the Bush administration.
And the leaks make all this so murky, as I was saying to you earlier. So NBC reports that the U.S. has info, no names attached, that Putin was personally involved in the hacking of the DNC and related entities. Kremlin says that's laughable nonsense. And then Congressman Peter King, a Republican, says, well, to have it appear in the Washington Post, New York Times, the intelligence community has concluded this. Who? Who in the CIA? And we don't know.
Well, but President Obama, in his Friday news conference almost said as much when he said not much happens in Russia without Putin. So we're hearing that straight from President Obama.
So you think that settles it? Because there's a question of evidence. I mean, yeah, Obama did say that.
Do you think that makes it pretty clear? If President Obama, who gets a daily briefing, is going out to his year-end press conference, the last one of his presidency, and says nothing happens in Russia without Putin, I think that it doesn't matter who says it in the CIA.
Let me see if I can get you both in on this. Okay, Rex Tillerson, ExxonMobil chief, picked for Secretary of State. Look, he's an oil guy with no government experience. The media are kind of portraying him as not just a Putin friend, but a kind of a Putin stooge. Fair, unfair? Do you agree or disagree?
Well, listen, Rex Tillerson has a huge financial gain here if all of a sudden you lift sanctions on Russia, because ExxonMobil wants to drill and has been prevented from drilling in the Arctic because of the sanctions that we've imposed.
Well, that suggests that he would only act in his own personal financial
You know what? He needs to tell us right now whether he supports the sanctions or not. Then I'll have an open mind.
There are Russian ties with a lot of with a lot of Trump officials, and that's interesting. In part, I think it would be good for the media to think about what Trump's strategy is, whether it's all nefarious or whether he has a game plan here, and cover it just more calmly.
Reminding myself that he's not president yet. Aaron McPike, Molly Hemingway, Julie Roginski, great to see you all. After the break.